Some of the best advice today I think I've ever heard, and I've heard this said different ways, but somebody said that 30 minutes is about the right time for a good sermon, and it's way too long for a bad sermon. So I'm not going to preach to you too much tonight unless we start talking about property taxes, and I may have to get up on a chair or something. When I think about Magnolia and the importance of Magnolia in the 4th District, the first thing that comes to my mind are the products. And when I say products, when you look at this area, you've got timber and lumber, and you've got oil and gas, and you've got all these things that are so important to the economy of the 4th District that are located right here in Magnolia. My job as an engineer is we have a company that does forest products facilities. We designed the sawmill at Waldo. Now, I wasn't working there at the time, obviously, because I think that's been there since the early 70s. But we've designed forest products facilities all over the southeast. Basically anywhere that a pine tree is grown, we do business there. Because of that, I decided to go back to school and get a master's degree in forestry to go along with my engineering degree. But when I think about the other products of Magnolia, I think about Southern Arkansas University and all the people that you've educated and put into the workforce in Arkansas. And my older brother is actually a product of Southern Arkansas University. And not only is he a product of Southern Arkansas University, he brought a product of Magnolia home with him in Columbia County. Stephanie Neal and her mother Laura is here tonight, and brother-in-law Scott Rowland in the back. Glad to have them here. So I think about those products, and I think about all the other people that came out of Columbia County and Magnolia that I'm familiar with. Think about Lane Jean that Andrea and I served with in the state legislature. I'm the caucus leader, the majority leader, and Lane's the whip in the caucus. And Lane's a solid conservative guy, and you know where he's going to be on the issues. You don't have to worry about Lane's positions when it comes to conservative ideas. I think about Beth Ann, who's from this area and who had the courage to step up and run against Mike Ross when nobody thought that anybody could beat Mike Ross, and she gave it a good run and then ran a good race again. And then I think about Congressman Griffin, that if you haven't heard, he announced today he's not running for his 3rd term, and I really hate to hear that. I was hoping to be able to serve in Congress with Congressman Griffin. He's a great guy. He's represented the 2nd District, and he's represented all of Arkansas very well in Congress on the Ways and Means Committee, and just a real asset to our state. And whatever he decides to do, I hope that, I know he'll do well at it because I know his track record, but you can always be proud of guys like Tim Griffin that came from Magnolia. I mentioned that I got a forestry degree. A lot of that's because I met Bobby Neal, and I knew he'd gone to Yale and got a forestry degree, and the business that I worked in, that was an encouragement to me to do that. And I think the 4th District is blessed with the things that this state needs to capitalize on to create real wealth and to grow jobs. But we need a government that works for the people, not against the people. We don't need a government, we don't need a people of the government, by the government, and for the government. We need a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that's one reason that I want to go to Washington, D.C. I served on a school board, I served in the state legislature, and at every level I've served, I found out that there was somebody up the food chain pushing down regulations and rules that are detrimental to the thing that you're trying to do in the area where you're serving. I thought when I got elected to the school board, you went in and made decisions to run the local school. Well, I found out Little Rock was pushing down probably 80% of the decisions that you were just expected to rubber stamp. I went to Little Rock, where I believe our founding fathers built this country around state governments, and the state governments formed the federal government, and the powers were supposed to stay mainly with the state government, but we've gotten way out of kilter on that. And now the federal government, and two of the worst violators are the EPA and the Health and Human Services, that send down regulations and rules that tie the hands of state governments. So I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. and figure out where the source of all this is, and do everything I can to untie the hands of the people who know how to govern, and do it at a level where it's closest to the people and most effective. So that's in a nutshell why I'm running for Congress. I want to go and fight for our rights to govern ourselves and take care of our own issues, and not think that we have this mentality now that we send our tax money in and then we have to beg to get it back to use it in our areas. That's not the way I believe this country was founded, and I don't believe it's the way that we should be living. I don't believe that that's going to create the environment and the opportunity for my kids and your kids and grandkids to have the same opportunities that I had growing up. So I want to go there, and I want to do everything I can to return that power, to take it away from a top-down centralized government and put it into the local control of people that know how to govern themselves. And we don't need somebody from Washington, D.C. watching every move we make and telling us everything to do. We've given it up, I believe, an inch at a time, and we've got to start taking it back inches or feet and yards at a time. And I believe there's still hope. A lot of people look at me and say, why on earth do you want to go to Washington, D.C.? Have you not seen the news lately? Have you not seen everything that's going on up there? Well, I remember when I was a 10, 12-year-old kid, and Jimmy Carter was the president, and we had hostages in Iran. We had an oil crisis. Inflation was going through the roof. And it didn't, I was just a little kid, but I could pick up on it that things weren't all that well back then. And then I remember a guy named Ronald Reagan coming along, and it wasn't too long the people were starting to realize that this country is a great country again, and they had hope, and they had an idea that there was a better future and a brighter tomorrow, and things turned around. And I think that can happen again. We just have to have the right leadership in D.C. to make that happen. What can one person do in Washington, D.C.? What can one person in the U.S. House of Representatives do? By themselves, they can't do a whole lot. And Andrea can attest. Being one of 100 in Little Rock's tough enough. But to go to Washington, D.C. and be one of 435, that can be a pretty daunting task, especially having served in the legislature and knowing how the process works. But one thing I did find out about Washington, D.C. is that the committees are about 20 to 60 people. And that's where you can get in and work hard and really make a difference. And I'm wanting to get on a path to get on the Energy and Commerce Committee, which I believe is very important to the 4th District of Arkansas. And I want to get on that committee and work hard and present good ideas and gain support for those ideas, and eventually get into leadership positions where we can get those ideas pushed and get support for them and make a difference for the people here in the 4th District. I'm a product of the 4th District. I was talking about products of Magnolia. Well, I'm a product of the 4th District. I was born and raised in Hot Springs, other than going up to the University of Arkansas for my engineering degree, and a short stint in the Delta at Riceland Foods for my first job out of college, and then going off to graduate school. I've lived in Hot Springs all my life. My family's from there. I'm raising my family there. My kids go to a public school. There's an adequacy amount that's a set amount per student in each school. And had the governor been able to grab that URT money, the uniform rated tax money, it would just go in and offset the amount of general revenue that goes in to make up that adequacy amount. Now you may wonder, what does that have to do at all with Congress? Well, I'll tell you what it has to do. We stood up to Mike Beebe, the Mike Beebe that has told me several times, I won all 75 counties and when I last ran. My approval rating is very high, and it's basically, don't mess with me, I'm a popular governor. But when something's right, you have to stand up against a popular governor or a president that likes to rule by executive order, and you have to take the hard line and stand your ground. And we did that last week, and we were able to beat Mike Beebe. Never before has 1 penny of property taxes not come back into the school district where they were collected. And this rule, if he got it passed, would have taken some of those taxes, and they would end up in general revenue. Now, the governor said in the paper that sales tax and property taxes are the same. So they were trying to develop the dialogue to get people to buy into it that, you know, the state's already getting your sales tax and your income tax. It won't hurt for them to come along and get your property tax too. And I think it would have set a terrible precedent. And I don't know how many people really understood that and how many people thought the real issue last week was the public school employee insurance, which it was and it should have been. But just tagging little bills in there like that and letting them pass through would have had, I believe, devastating long-range impact on our state. That's the kind of thing that I want to go to Washington, D.C. and fight against. And I want to be for things, too. I introduced a bill in the last legislative session to stop or to slow the rate of spending in state government. How many of you realize that in the past 10 years, Arkansas's total spending went from $8 billion to $24 billion in state government? I mean, people just, they don't realize that. A 232% increase in spending in state government. I looked at the data on that and I thought, there's no way. But, you know, double checked it and sure enough, a 232% increase.
I don't think it came to South Arkansas, any of that increase.
Well, a lot of that was federal pass-through money, but it goes through the appropriations process in the state budget. But I looked at that and I said, this is maddening. And we have this idea that we've got a balanced budget in Arkansas, which in essence we do. We've got the Revenue Stabilization Act that says you can't spend more money than you bring in. And that's great. It's kept us from deficit spending. But the other thing that it's done, it's allowed us to spend right up to the very limit each time. And when something new comes along, what does the state government do? We can't spend more than we got. We don't have enough. Yeah, we got to raise taxes. So we're very non-competitive on taxes in Arkansas. If you look at the total tax burden, we're up close to 35th to 40th in the country on our tax burden in this state. So I thought, a good idea would be to just control that rate of growth. Why don't we tag the rate of growth in spending to the rate of growth in people's income in Arkansas? So let's say that we're not going to allow the state government budget to grow more than the personal income growth in the state. Sounds reasonable to me. Well, you'd have thought the world was coming to an end. We were going to be shutting down public schools. We were going to close universities. Prisoners were going to be roaming the street. It was the end of the world, according to the liberals, that we were going to cut all of these things. And remember, it wasn't cutting anything, but just saying the rate of growth in state spending couldn't grow faster than the rate of growth in personal income. So those are the kinds of things that I want to fight for. I think we could use something like that in Washington, D.C., where we started slowing the rate of growth of spending. The way I've had to explain to me in D.C. is they kind of pick like a 10% increase in spending, and anything less than that is a cut. Only in Washington, D.C. and in Arkansas now, I guess, is 5% growth a cut. There's 3% growth a cut. So I want to take those kind of ideas. I want to take the hard work ethic, and I want to take my love and respect for the 4th District of Arkansas and the people here and the industry here, the jobs here, the small businesses here, and I want to go do everything I can to promote that, and to protect our rights so that my kids can grow up and have the same opportunities that I had, so that your kids and grandkids can do the same thing.